Okay, Erev Tov, good evening, everyone. We're continuing Gemara Masechet Berachot, and we have very, very, very relevant, practical Gemarot tonight. And I have a question for you before we start. Ready? Question is as follows. We spoke about last week about praying Mincha and Arvit during the times between Plag and Mincha and Shekiah. You remember? Praying Mincha and Arvit early on Fridays. Is that allowed? Yes. When I say early, sorry? Mincha, yes, sorry, no. Okay, come on in. Come on in. Shalom Aleichem, Mr. Azizi, Shalom Aleichem. So, are we allowed to pray Arvit of Friday night? Are you allowed to pray it in the afternoon? While it's still daytime? Can you pray Arvit? Let's say while it's still daytime, after Plag Mincha. In other words, I'm asking, can you accept Shabbat early by praying Arvit? Yes?
Consistency to do
Okay.
it every time, yes.
Okay, very good. Very good.
Flip-flop between the two.
Don't flip-flop. Very good. Very good.
Unless you're in a minyan.
Unless you're in a minyan. Even if you're in a minyan, you could even do both in the same zone. Right. Correct. Well, if you're in a minyan, you can do it, right? So if you're not in a minyan and you want to pray Shabbat before sunset, you should pray Mincha before Plag. Before Plag of Mincha, you should pray Mincha, and then after Plag of Mincha, you could pray Arvit. And because at least you're being consistent by saying, I hold like Rabbi Yehuda today. And it's not ideal to change it, but here you're expressing a situation where everyone's going to be waiting for me. They're asking me to do this. At least you do it this way. What you should not do is pray both of them between Plag and Shekiah. You shouldn't do that both by yourself. Okay. Oh, Ilan asked, hold on a second. If I pray Mincha early for whatever reason, let's say there's an early minyan, right? Sunset is at 8:30. They do Mincha at 6:30. They have it early, 6:30, 7 o'clock. You guys know how sometimes there's people leaving Friday night. There's people leaving Kanistan. There's people coming in. The people leaving have already accepted Shabbat. They already finished Arvit. The people coming in are about to start Ashrei. So is that allowed? We're saying yes, right? But now Ilan's question is, someone who prays Mincha Arvit early on Friday, and they do Arvit early on Friday, so it's still sunrise, and you look at the watch and it says Shabbat starts and candle lighting is in an hour and a half from now. Can they do Melacha? Is it already Shabbat for them?
Yes.
He already prayed Arvit. So is it already Shabbat? You guys are saying yes. Is he allowed to start and say Kiddush already during the day? Okay, so you're saying yes. Okay, so tonight we're going to see the source for this discussion. Follow-up question. The same way I'm allowed to pray Arvit of Shabbat, I'm allowed to pray it on Friday afternoon while it's still day. Can I do the same thing 24 hours later? Can I pray Arvit of Motzei Shabbat with Atach Antanu while it's still before sunset on Shabbat? Can I pray Arvit of Motzei Shabbat while it's still Shabbat? Nick jumped. He put the trigger. He said no. Oh, okay. Okay. So Ilan is saying, hold on a second. We're gonna let you start Shabbat earlier, but we're not gonna let you end Shabbat earlier, so you can't pray Arvit. Andrew is saying, okay, so don't end Arvit, but you could pray Arvit. Yeah, but in the Arvit we say Atach Antanu. That's Havdalah. You skip it. Oh, okay. I tricked you out of the right answer. You were going the right way, but you're not. I just want to say you don't skip it. You're supposed to say it, but we're going to see that tonight. We're going to see the sources for it tonight about the questions of are you allowed to pray Arvit before Shabbat is over? Arvit on Motzei Shabbat. And then I want to take the question further. If you're allowed to pray Arvit of Shabbat on Friday afternoon, and you're already allowed to say Kiddush on Friday afternoon before it's sunset, you go home, you have dinner, you say Kiddush. Can I say Arvit of Motzei Shabbat while it's still Shabbat? And can I do Havdalah? Let's say I want to do Havdalah. Let's say I want to go to sleep. I want to do Havdalah before sunset on Shabbat. Can I do it? You're saying no. Okay? Anyone want to say yes? You could do Havdalah on Shabbat? Without a fire. Shelomo. Without a fire. Okay? If you want to know what the answer is on this page. And I can tell you that I had this debate with someone recently, and the person was like, "No, you have no idea what you're talking about." I'm like, "I know what I'm talking about," and I opened up Shulchan Aruch to show them. And it's exactly from this daf. Rabbi Chaim quotes this daf all the time. No. I have not made any money on it. No, but it's fighting for the truth of Torah. And I'm going to give you, by the end of this class, I hope that you'll all be experts in answering the questions of praying Arvit early, both on Friday nights and on Saturday nights. Okay? Here we go. Share screen. We are starting from Chavzayin Amarav 27A. 27A4. Rav Ikla Lebe Geniva. Rav visited to the house of Geniva. That's his name. Daf Chavzayin Amud Aleph 27A. If you're looking at the article, it's 27A4. 27A4 is the top of the page. Rav Ikla Lebe Geniva. Rav once came to Geniva's house. So this Rav was traveling and he came to Geniva's house. V'tzaleh shel Shabbat be'erev Shabbat. And he started Shabbat early. He prayed Arvit of Shabbat. V'tzaleh. Let's get the words down. V'tzaleh shel Shabbat. Tzaleh means to pray. V'tzaleh shel Shabbat. He prays the prayer of Shabbat, meaning Friday night. Be'erev Shabbat, while it's still Erev Shabbat. V'havam mitzaleh Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Rabbi la'acharei de Rav. And when this happened, they went to the Bet Knesset. Rav went to the early minyan, right? So when he came to Geniva's house, he said, "Rabbi, welcome. If you want, there's a 6:30 minyan, there's a 7 minyan, there's a 8:10 minyan. You go to whichever one you want." He says, "At 6:30, let's go. I'm hungry. So let's go start the night early." So he goes to the early minyan. That's the first thing that we saw with Rav. And now, and then the second detail here was that in the Kanisa, Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba was behind him. Wow, Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba was also there. It's a powerhouse of a Kanisa this night. You had Rav, you have Geniva, you have Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba. V'sayem Rav finished his tefillah. Now, when we say that he was behind him, the way Rashi explains, it's not that he was like directly behind him. It's just that he was like behind him, like the row behind him. And Rav finishes, and then he wants to like pass by in front of him. Okay, that's what the case is right now. Rav was in front of him, not that he was directly in front of him, but that he was in the row in front of him. Rav finishes, and now Rav wanted to pass through. Let's say he needed to go to get a tissue or something, or he needed to go to the bathroom, and he wanted to pass in front of Rabbi Yirmiyah while he was still praying. V'sayem Rav finished his tefillah, v'lo paskeh litzlotzeh Rabbi Yirmiyah, and he did not interrupt the tefillah of Rabbi bar Abba, meaning he did not pass in front of him. So here's what happened. Rav came to the Kanisa once. Rav is like the Gadol Hador. So all eyes are on him. What happens? First of all, he goes to the early minyan. He's praying Erev Shabbat he's praying Shel Shabbat on Erev Shabbat. Then Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba, who was his student, was in the row behind him. And then Rav finished first. And he wanted to pass by and saw that Rabbi Yirmiyah was still praying, so he didn't pass by in front of him. So the Gemara says, Shema mina tlat. We learn three things from this story. There's three halachic rulings that you see in the actions of Rav in this story. Number one, Shema mina mitpalel adam shel Shabbat be'erev Shabbat. The first ruling that you learn from here is that you're allowed to pray Arvit early. Mitpalel shel Shabbat be'erev Shabbat. You're allowed to. Right? And we understand what does this actually mean? When you say that Rav is praying early, and we're saying that you're allowed to pray Arvit early, what are you actually saying? In the language of in the context of our Mishnah. Yes, before sunset, which means, who do we hold like? You hold like Rabbi Yehuda. And remember, the way we concluded last week was there was a machloket between Rabbi Yehuda and Chachamim, if you're allowed to pray, if you pray Arvit after sunset or before sunset. Chachamim say it's only after sunset. Rabbi Yehuda says it could be before sunset as long as it's after Plaga Mincha. And what did the Gemara conclude?
These are okay as long as they're consistent.
Very good. Da'avad kamar avad, da'avad kamar avad. You could do either way. Now, even the consistent qualification that you made is not even in the Gemara. That's the Shulchan Aruch. But the Gemara just says da'avat kamar avad, da'avat kamar avad. You could pick either one. Now we have a story where Rav actually did that. He prayed early. So that's number one. We see that you're allowed to pray Arvit early, like Rabbi Yehuda. Number two, Ushma mina, mitpalel talmid acharei rabo. A student is allowed to pray behind his rabbi. he wasn't directly behind him, but he was like right behind him. He was in the row behind him, and you see you're allowed to. And you say, well, I didn't think you're not allowed to, but now you learn that you should have thought that you're not allowed to, and now you see you are allowed to. Okay, so we're gonna have to understand like what exactly is the issue here. We're gonna see in a moment. But right now, you see that a student is allowed to pray behind the rabbi. And number three, you are not allowed to pass in front of someone who is praying. Okay, this is very common. Because what happens is you're praying in a minyan, you finish your Amidah, and now you want to go to the bathroom, you want to go get a coffee, you want to go get a tissue, you want to go pick up a Gemara Berachot to review. You want to go, and then you see that someone right in front of you, or someone that you're going to pass in front of them, is praying. Are you allowed to pass in front of him? We are now learning in this Gemara, no, you're not allowed to. So there are three halachic rulings here. We're going to go through each of them. There's really tons of practical halachot going to come out of tonight's shiur. Okay? Everyone got the story down? Rav visited the home of the Bet Knesset and the yeshiva of Geniva. He prayed Arvit early on Friday afternoon, and Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba, his student, was behind him. And when Rav finished, he didn't pass in front of him. And everyone saw this. So they learned, like, number one, he's praying in this minyan. You're allowed to pray Arvit early. Number two, the student is allowed to pray behind the rabbi. Number three, you're not allowed to pass in front of someone while they're praying. So they got these three things. Now, let's go through each of them. So first, the Gemara actually starts with the last one. It's like once you're talking about passing in front of passing in front of someone who's praying, it says, Misayala le Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. This story is in line and supports the ruling that Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi taught us. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi taught, Asur la'avor kineged hamitpalelin, you are not allowed to pass in front of someone who is praying. By the way, I just have to say, one person that probably is going to have a hard time doing this is our dear Kohen. Why? Because you're praying, all of a sudden it's time to go wash your hands. You tell him you can't pass in front of someone. Okay, so what's he going to do? He's just going to stay there? The Kohanim is going to be lost. There is some discussion about whether Kohanim have an exemption to this for obvious reasons, or there's other considerations as well. Let's think about this. Why would you not be allowed to pass in front of someone who's praying? So, yeah, you heard what he said? Say it again. Okay, it's disturbing, especially a guy is going like this, and all of a sudden, boom! Oh, where'd you come from? Or even if not, it's like you're praying, I'm in my zone. Let's say I'm trying to shed a tear. Let's say I'm trying to cry. You know, this happened to me once, not with right in front of me, but I was chazan somewhere, and the gabbai is like, I don't know, he's got something like he's probably like got a 15-second Shemona Esrei down. After we started, he was done. Okay, we just started, he was done. I don't know how. And then he was ready for me to do chazara, so he comes and stands in front of me like this, ready to say b'chavod, and I'm like, I'm in the middle of Rifa'inu. Like, I have a ways to go, and he's like this, and I see him, and you think I could focus on my tefillah? The only thing I'm doing is this guy's about to punch. I'm like ready to defend myself, and it's impressive. Honestly, it's impressive to read that fast. But like, I had no kavanah. I was just trying to finish this, right? So this action of someone standing right in front of you is disruptive. So that's very simple understanding of it's disruptive. Now, the way the commentators explain is like, but if the person understands why you're doing it, it's not as disruptive. If I see the Kohen and I know that the Kohen wants to go, you know what's going to be disruptive for me? If the Kohen doesn't go. Because now the Kohen's stuck. And now since he's stuck, I have to rush my tefillah so I can release the Kohen, because if not, he's not going to get the Berachot Kohanim, and then I can't focus at all. You know what would help me focus? If he just goes. So there are commentators, I'm telling you from a practical perspective, there are commentators that explain that in a situation like that, you're allowed to go. That said, if you can go behind the guy, you should go behind the guy. Because we're learning now that you should not pass in front of someone who's praying. Okay, if you go behind him, or another option, what? If you have, I'm talking about the Kohen, but okay, there's another option.
The side.
Okay, obviously, if you don't need to pass in front of him, don't pass in front of him. If you could go from the side, yes. But there's another option. If you have to pass in front of him, we're going to see it right now. Rabbi Ami, Rabbi Yasi Chalfe, the Gemara says, is that true? Ini, is that true that you're not allowed to pass in front of someone who's praying? But we know that Rabbi Amet and Rabbi Yaseh, two big Rabbanim, two big Amoraim, they do it all the time. They're doing it all the time. I'm in their Bet Knesset, I see them doing it all the time. So what do you mean you can't? Rabbi Amet, Rabbi Yaseh, Chutz le'arba amot of the Chalfe. You know why? Because they are beyond 4 amot. So that means 4 amot is approximately 6 feet. You're allowed to pass in front of someone who's praying if you're beyond 4 amot from him, 6 feet away. So this is where I probably can't get this on camera, but sometimes if I'm passing by, if I'm trying to walk by, you'll see basically, okay, what I was trying to show is like sort of like mazing through. And you go 6 amot in front of someone, and then you come back because you have to like stay within your 6 amot of the next guy, whatever it is. So yeah, there is this idea that you are allowed to. So if you have to pass, your options are go behind them or go 4 amot in front of them. But if there's a situation that you can't, for example, a kohen or someone is gonna go to the bathroom, if someone is passing gas, like these things are disruptive regardless, then a person should obviously go, but try to be as far and as non-disruptive as possible. Yes.
So you're saying they can pass right by them, behind them, or are you supposed to do your room for them to take their steps back?
No, it's in front of them. It's in front of them. So yeah, you could have some fender benders if you're walking behind the guy and the guy starts backing up into you. You can, but at that point he's over. He's done. So it's okay. You don't need to give him that space. Again, you guys, you have to use your judgment. Again, a guy is shuckling back and forth, and you walk up and you brush upon him. That's more disruptive than walking in front of him. So you have to understand, number one, what the halacha is, and number two, what's the idea behind the halacha, and try to not disrupt people. We have a lot of questions here, so let's go through them. Yes.
I just said, like, when you're on a really crowded minyan, doing Amidah, someone's also praying right behind you, and you finish for him.
Yes.
What would you do?
Okay, very good. So you're extending this question to what if I'm praying in front of someone and I want to take 3 steps back and I'm gonna ram into the guy.
So you're gonna be with him.
Or I'm gonna be entering his 4 amot. Amazing. Okay, hold on to that question until we look at Shulchan Aruch, because Shulchan Aruch is going to say that you should not take your 3 steps back. You should wait there. And it's because of this halacha. Very good. So hold that point until we're going to see Shulchan Aruch. Yes.
My question might piggyback off him, because I noticed some people, when they take a step back, they go to the side.
Yeah.
So you should hold it off till.
Yeah. Very good. So this is something that's interesting, because I didn't talk about taking 3 steps back. I talked about you're going to get a tissue, you're going to the bathroom, you're going to do kohanim, you're walking by. But you guys are correctly deducing from this that you shouldn't take 3 steps back into their red zone either, right? Into their 4 amot zone. And Shulchan Aruch is going to connect that. And what you should do in that situation, we're going to see, is you should wait until the person finishes. We're going to see that in Shulchan Aruch. So hold that thought. Yes. You had a question? Rodney had a question?
Is it just a concentration thing? Because I feel like it's disrespectful, like having a conversation with God.
Aha, very nice.
He's one of the people that are doing it on his flow, but now you can walk on him because you're not disrupting.
Amazing. So I did see that you could see here in footnote 32, it says, because doing so upsets their concentration. Mishnah Berurah 102:15, see there for an alternative reason. I believe there in Mishnah Berurah, he explains that you're entering the Shekhinah. The Shekhinah is there, and you're like walking through the Shekhinah, and that's disrespectful to the Shekhinah almost. And that's where he gives an alternative reason. Yes, absolutely. So the differences will be like what we're talking about. Like, let's say there's a situation where by passing through, you could actually help the guy's concentration, like someone who Kohen wants to pass by, and it would actually be better for him if you just pass by. Maybe if it's because of this alternative reason, he really still can't. So that's a very, very good point. Maybe if there's time, really, there's a lot to do tonight. Maybe if there's time, when we look up Shulchan Aruch, we'll look up this Mishnah Berurah also. Remember, it's Mishnah Berurah 15. Okay, yes, more questions? Any more questions?
We're finished with the guy behind you.
Oh, okay. So now you're this is becoming a practical halacha l'maaseh class. You know what? And because these are relevant questions, I'll answer. So what do you do if there's a guy behind you? The guy is the guy's going through a breakup, and the guy is he doesn't have anyone else to talk to. So his tefillah is taking a while. Okay, so what do you do if that's the guy that got behind you? Or I'll tell you where it happens to me sometimes. It's like the guy walks in late. And I'm doing Sim Shalom, and the guy just right there pulls the trigger, starts his Adonai Sefadai Tiflach V'Yagid right behind me. And it's like, you're kidding me. You have to come like, what? Yeah. Okay, so let's see Shulchan Aruch, and then we'll talk through these examples. Ilan's question is, what can I say? Can I answer to Kedusha at that time? Can I say Nakdishach? Can I answer Amen to Berachot? So hopefully when we get up to Shulchan Aruch, I want to cover some Gemara, but when we get to Shulchan Aruch, hopefully we'll cover this. Okay, let's keep going. All right. So now we're going to the second thing that we learned. The second thing that we learned is that Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Rava, he prayed behind his rabbi. So the Gemara says, how could he have done that? How could he go pray behind your rabbi? Rav Yehuda says the name of Rav, Leolam, Adam, a person should not pray lo keneged rabo, not right next to his rabbi, because that's implying that I'm better than him, or sorry, that I'm on the same level as he is. V'lo achare rabo, and not behind his rabbi, which, as Tosfot explains, makes it seem as that I'm bowing to him. Okay, there's actually 3 answers that I read as to why you can't stand behind your rabbi. Okay, why can't you stand at the same level? It's because you feel that you're equal footing as him. Okay, so you can't do that. Makes sense. Why can't you pray behind him? 3 reasons. Answer number 1, Rashi says, is that because you're saying that you're in the same boat as he is, like you're the same, even though you're not saying it, you're lined up with him, you're saying we're in the same group, that's why I'm right behind him. We're like going together. He's going in to pray to Hashem with me together. Rashi says it's a place coming from a place of haughtiness, that you think you're on the same level as him. Tosfot says, no, it's because it looks like you're idolizing him. When you're bowing down to your rabbi, and we don't want you to bow down to your rabbi because he's not an idol. You bow down to God. That's what Tosfot says. Rabbi Yonah says the third answer. Rabbi Yonah says specifically for this idea that you guys just brought up. The idea that you brought up is because you are now going to be inconveniencing your rabbi because he's not going to be able to take his 3 steps back because of you. It's one thing if you're doing it to an average person, but then to go into inconvenience your rabbi by praying right behind him, so now he can't take his 3 steps back, you shouldn't do that. Okay, these are 3 reasons as to why you can't pray behind your rabbi. Either because it's a sign of haughtiness, or because people will mistakenly think you're bowing to him, or because you're going to be inconveniencing him. Hold on a second. Okay, but the point is that this opinion, Rabbi Yehuda bar Amarav, says you can't. Now Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Rabba prayed behind who? Who is the rabbi? Rav. So Rav says the student can't pray behind the rabbi, and then the student comes to pray behind the rabbi. What is he doing? It's his student. He should know that. So the Gemara says, V'tanya, Rabbi Eliezer, and we have a braita, by the way, it says further, Hamitpalel acharei rabo. There's 5 or 6 types of people that are going to be doing something very, very negative. Number 1, Hamitpalel acharei rabo, someone who's praying behind his rabbi. Number 2, V'anoten shalom l'rabo, someone who says hello to his rabbi. Number 3, V'machazir shalom l'rabo, someone who responds and says hello in response to his rabbi. V'acholek al yeshivato shel rabo, someone who argues on the yeshiva of his rabbi. V'haomer davar shelo shema mipi rabo, and someone who says something that he did not hear from his rabbi. Gorem la-shechina shetistalek mi-Yisrael. These 5 people causes the Shekhinah, God's presence, to leave. Okay, so praying behind your rabbi is a very negative thing. By the way, we have to explain all of these. But let me first get to the explanation. How did Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Rabba pray behind Rav? And then we're going to do all of the explanations afterwards. So the Gemara answers, Shani Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Rabba, the Talmid Chaver Haya. Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Rabba was not a student. He was a student friend. He was a friend student, meaning they were colleagues. But he was the assistant rabbi. Here's the rabbi, here's the assistant rabbi. He's not his student. They're somewhat colleagues. but he's a level lower. So the Gemara is explaining that's why he was able to do it. Imagine you have the rabbi and you have the associate rabbi or the assistant rabbi or whatever it is. He's a student, but he's not like a student that I learned from him. They're like almost the same age. Okay? Now we have to explain how did we know that. But there's so much to explain here. Let's go through this list one at a time. 5 types of people that cause the Shekhinah to leave from Israel. Number 1, someone who prays behind his rabbi. Okay? We explained this already, what the potential issues with praying behind your rabbi are. V'anoten shalom rabo, greeting your rabbi. What's wrong with greeting your rabbi? Aha, very good. So you can say, what's up, like that. Okay? Or you say, hey, how are you? Instead of saying, shalom harav, shalom alecha Rabbi Umari, or saying something with respect. But if you say like, how you doing? To your rabbi, it's like equating you to your rabbi. To a certain extent, you are being mistalek Shekhinah from Israel. You're removing the Shekhinah from Israel because, you know, a nice explanation as to why is this removing God's presence from Israel. Okay, why is this the quote-unquote punishment? Someone who treats his rabbi as a friend and says like, what's up? Or, but the next one is Hamachazir Shalom Rabo. Someone who responds to his rabbi, again, like an ordinary person, by saying, good, never, oh, what's up? How are you? Or, I'm good. Or, I don't know, BH. I don't know, whatever. Just giving some sort of a response that it doesn't convey respect. These things remove the Shekhinah from Israel. The next one, someone who argues with the yeshiva. This means this is something that his rabbi has an opinion, and a very strong opinion, that this is something that the yeshiva, they studied, that this is the statement they put out, and you come and you argue with it. Look, it's okay to argue respectfully, but you come and you say, he's wrong, my rabbi is wrong, and you make a whole big deal out of it. That, and then also, someone who says something that he did not hear from his rabbi, but he quotes his rabbi having said it. I love this, where people come and tell me, oh, Rabbi Ben Chaim said this. I'm like, I don't know. I highly doubt Rabbi Ben Chaim said that. He's like, no, I asked him. I asked Rabbi Ben Chaim said that. I'm like, there's no way Rabbi Ben Chaim said that. It's like against, the words are against the Torah of what you're saying. There's no way he said that. They're like, no, okay, fine. The details are a little bit different. And maybe I heard this. Or maybe Rabbi Ben Chaim said, don't do it. But I mixed up that one word. All of a sudden, the details change. But you hear sometimes someone quoting someone, and that's this example of someone quotes the rabbi, but he didn't hear the rabbi say that. Why are these things that remove the Shekhinah from Israel? Because in a sense, they're all disrespecting the Rav. They're all disrespecting the rabbi. And the rabbi is representing God in this world. The rabbi is an ambassador of Hashem. So if someone comes and treats the rabbi with respect, it's a way of understanding that he's a chacham, he has Torah, it's bringing respect of Hashem. But if someone says, so what? So what that he knows this? I don't care. It's, in a way, it's removing God from your life. And there's a Gemara that speaks about this, that I don't need to go through the whole thing, but essentially there's a way of learning. The Gemara speaks about how the word et, every time you have the word et, it's coming to teach you something. And there's a pasuk that says, et Adonai lecha tira, you should fear God. And someone said, there's no one that you have to fear as much as you have to fear God. So this et, this extra word, I can't give it to anything. And then Rabbi Akiva comes and says, Rabbi Akiva comes and says, it says, et elu tamidei chachamim. You have to fear Tamidei Chachamim the way you fear God, because the fear of Tamidei Chachamim is simply a representative of God. And it's not that this person is God, Chas v'shalom. We've said you can't idolize him. But this is what the person is viewing as a representative of Hashem. So when someone disrespects the rabbi, when someone says hello to him in a disrespectful way, or responds in a disrespectful way, or argues with him by saying, like, I don't care about what he has to say, or uses his name in vain by quoting him when he didn't say something, which could actually be disgracing him by saying, like this rabbi said you could eat pork, like this. When you do this, what you're really doing is you're staining the position of a Talmid Chacham in this world, and is removing the Shekhinah from this world. So we had this idea here to talk to us about when someone prays right behind the rabbi, it's almost like a disrespect. Okay, and we give different explanations of how to explain it. And I want to say one or two more things about this, but you have some questions? Go ahead. Let's open up for questions.
I want to understand when it says is it Gemara itself just back and forth with Rabbanim?
No, okay, sorry. So I said that he argues with his opinion, but I misspoke. It's actually that he opens up a new yeshiva to compete with his rabbi's yeshiva. So let's see how they write it here. One who challenges the academy of his Torah teacher. Footnote 4, he sets up an academy and gives Torah lectures without the permission of his Torah teacher. So he basically goes to his rabbi's yeshiva and he sees everyone, and then he goes and he poaches all of them and he starts a new yeshiva where he's taking away his rabbi's clientele. Cholek al yeshivato is competing with the yeshiva of his rabbi, essentially. Now, of course, if he asks his rabbi and his rabbi says, yes, I want you to, so then you're not competing. He's encouraging. But if someone who starts competing with the yeshiva of his rabbi, that's what this idea is. Sorry, I said it as arguing. It's not arguing. It's competing by opening up a new yeshiva. Thank you. Yes.
His rabbi, is it just his rabbi, or any rabbi that you can't act, and this
Sheila Yafa. I think this is referring to his rabbi. You're asking, is this to any rabbi or is this specifically to his rabbi? I think this is what goes to what's called a Rav Muvhak, his main rabbi. I think that these halachot apply to his own rabbi, but the disrespect should not be done to any rabbi, of course. Shouldn't be disrespecting any rabbi. But I think this braita specifically is referring to a Rav Muvhak. Let's see if they say anything. 1 second. Betanya? Rabbo, his teacher. His Torah teacher, yeah. The reason here is also because of haughtiness. Yep. Oh, okay, look at footnote 2. Footnote 2, second paragraph. The definition of a Torah teacher in this context is a person from whom the student has learned most of his Torah knowledge, or alternatively, a recognized Torah giant of his generation. Okay, so that's how they explain it here, is that it's either his rabbi, as you said, the one that he learned most of his Torah from, or if it's a like Gadol Hador, that he's a big rabbi that everyone knows and in disrespect. But if it's not his rabbi, but it's a rabbi, then it's okay to say what's up to him. But still, you should speak to him with respect. Okay, so let's understand this flow. You guys following? It all comes from that first story. Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba prayed behind Rav. We asked, how did he do it? Rav was the one that says students shouldn't pray behind their rabbis. So what did they answer? Sorry? I can't hear you. They were colleagues. Talmid chaver haya. He was like a friend. Now, how do we know he was a friend? Look at this, right? So let's see this. Shani Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba the Talmid chaver haya. Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba was different because he was a colleague, Talmid chaver, a friend, student. V'hainu the Kamar Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba the Rav. And that explains the following conversation after this happened. Remember, they prayed early, right? They prayed early on Friday. And he asked them, Mi badalt? He asked him, did you stop doing work? Badal comes from the same word as Havdalah, which means to separate. But this, we're talking about the start of Shabbat. So he says, did you accept Shabbat? Meaning that you can't turn on the light switches anymore, or you can't work anymore. Mi badalt, did you do that? Amar le, and he responded, in badilna, yes, I did. I accepted Shabbat already. Velo amar, and he did not say mi badel mar, but he did not say did the rabbi accept Shabbat, did the master accept Shabbat. So this is where you have this practice. This is the source where you have this practice of referring to a rabbi in third person. Where you go to the third person and you say, how's the Rav feeling? Or what does the Rav think about this? Or did the Rav already start Shabbat? As opposed to saying, did you? Because when you say you, it's almost like me and you are on the same footing. But if you say, did the Rav, now you're giving a little bit of respect. Have you ever heard this type of speaking? When you speak to the Rebbe, to the Rebbe. Yeah, the Rebbe, exactly. You don't say you say the Rebbe. Ashkenazi are very big in this. What do the Sfardi say? What's up? Yeah. Shoma, okay, but even Shoma, it's a respectful way of saying Tov. Yeah, okay. Okay, so here you see, very nice. You see how you took this concept and you applied it to Farsi. I heard when I was listening to the shir from Rav Leibowitz, I didn't know this. He says how Rav Hershel Schechter, doesn't like this because he said, I don't understand what you're talking about. Someone comes and asks him and says, what does the Rav feel about this? He's like, which Rav are you talking about? I don't know who you're talking about. Talking about me, or you're talking about my rabbi, or you're talking about someone else? So the way he said that he explains it is that in certain languages it makes sense, in certain languages it doesn't make sense. In English it doesn't make sense. That said, it is a way of respect. Anytime I have a question from Ben Chaim, I would say Shalom Kavod Rav, Echarav Posek. How does the Rav hold about this? Or Ma Rav Omer al Zeh, whatever it is, but I would say, how does the Rav? And he understands because that's the way of speaking of respect. Now, if you say you to him, he does not get offended. People will say that he does not get offended. But that's a way of speaking of respect, that you don't say you, but you say it with respect and you say the Rav. Or the same thing like first name. You don't say the first person's first name, but you say Rav Yosef or Rav Eliyav or something like that. Now, here it's amazing. So it's like we followed up the entire story and we're saying, how did he pray behind them? Then we say, oh, they're friends. Well, how do you know? Because afterwards he said, did you finish already? Or you started Shabbat already? Instead of saying, did the Rav start Shabbat already? He said, did you started already? So it's clear that they're buddies. It's clear that they're friends. So you could get that from their language as well. Okay. Now, yeah. So it is a sign of respect to say the Rav, to say Rebbe, to say the Rabbi, to say something like that. But like I said, what I heard Rav Schechter saying is that in English it's not as clear. It doesn't make as much sense. So in English, you shouldn't do this, or you don't have to do it. Seems like he never asked or was makbid for his students to do it with him, Rav Hershel Schechter. But it's a good idea. This is the source. And Zayin Amud Bet. Now I want to go back. Also, just to say a story of Rav Hershel Schechter, the Rabbi Leibowitz said. Remember how one of the 5 things is that you won't say hello to the rabbi, you won't respond to the rabbi, right? And we said how it's like not to do it disrespectfully. So Rabbi Leibowitz said how one time he asked Rav Schechter that if you had one more opportunity to speak with his rabbi, with Rav Soloveitchik, if you had one more opportunity to ask him any question, what would you ask him? And he said, it's funny. He said, while I'm waiting to get, meaning Rav Hershel Schechter was a big student of Rav Soloveitchik. He was a student. So Rabbi Leibowitz asked Rav Schechter, if you had one more opportunity to ask him any question, what would you ask him? And then his wife, Rav Schechter's wife, said, he would just sit there quietly. He was terrified of him. He would never say anything in front of him because he had so much respect for him. So he's like, whatever he tells you, the truth is, if he were sitting next to the Rav, he wouldn't ask anything. And I get this sense that sometimes when you have someone of respect, you're even bashful to even ask a question. You know, you see someone big, you're even bashful to ask a question. You get what I call in Farsi das pache. All of a sudden you're like, you start speaking nonsense. I've had my fair share of speaking nonsense, mistranslating Hebrew. I'll tell you guys a story. One time I was one time it was Erev Pesach. It's a long story, but I'll just cut to the chase. It was Erev Pesach. We went to Walgreens? What's the thing that used to be in that Walgreens? No, not Walgreens. It was Walbaum. It was Walbaum's right here in the Great Neck Plaza, whatever. It used to be this big supermarket. And Erev Pesach, we went there to get all of the kosher for Passover marshmallows and chips or whatever. So I went there to Walbaum's and I came out, and right there, standing right by the door, and I had maybe like 20 bags. We were just holding a bunch of bags. Right there was Rabbi Ben Chaim. And I kid you not, I don't know why. I wanted to kiss Rabbi Ben Chaim's hand. I dropped all the bags, and all I could remember is like a cantaloupe rolling. That's all I could remember. It was just like, like Rabbi Shalom Rabbi, grab my cantaloupe or whatever it was. But like, I just remember this, that I was like, whoa, you know? And that's this perspective of having such awe and respect that you almost can't even say hello. So this is a very nice idea as well. All of these concepts are just a way of respecting the rabbi, and all within in the same concept of praying right next to him, praying right behind him, praying side by side by him, praying too close to him. It's like you guys are friends. You're not friends. Don't go right behind him. Give him some space. You know, like you're not buddies. He's a level above you. Okay, very good. What time is it? All right. I don't know how much we're going to cover tonight, but we have a little bit more to go. Ready? We'll continue. Let's go. That's pache. You get it? Okay, here we go. So now we just went through this question of, and I owe you guys the Shulchan Aruch, okay? But follow the flow. We wanted to know why Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba prayed behind them. We said because they were like colleagues, they were friends. How do we know? Because he asked him, "Did you stop working already?" And his response was, "Yes, I stopped working." When he prayed early. Now we're asking the question of, wait a minute. It's not Shabbat yet. You prayed early, but it's still, the sun is still out. Candle lighting isn't for another hour and a half. Why did he have to stop? So that's what our question is. Umi Badil, did he really have to stop working? If he prayed Arvit early on Friday, but it's before candle lighting time, do you really have to stop working? Rabbi Avin. Sorry? Okay, so maybe this conversation. Okay, it's a good question. Let's follow the flow of the Gemara. Rabbi Avin tells us, Pam achat hitpalel Rebbe shel Shabbat be'erev Shabbat. Once Rebbe prayed of Arvit of Shabbat early, and afterwards v'nichlatz lamerchatz. He went to the bathhouse. He started showering. V'yatza. He came out. V'shana la pirkin. He gave a shiur. V'adayin lo chashecha, and it still wasn't sunset. Amar Rava, so the Gemara is asking, hold on a second, you're not allowed to bathe on Shabbat. You're not allowed to shower and bathe and go to the bathhouse on Shabbat. But Rebbe did it. So you see, you are allowed to do melacha after you pray Arvit on Friday if it's still not candle lighting yet. So the Gemara answers, Amar Rava, Rava answers, let me explain to you. Hahu denichnas lehaziyah. He didn't go to the bathhouse to bathe. He didn't go shower, but he went to perspire. It's like a sauna, a steam room. It seems like there was v'kodem gzera hava, and it was before the prohibition of doing this. Here's the flow of the Gemara. There's so many concepts here. Are you allowed to bathe on Shabbat? Well, what you're not allowed to do on Shabbat is to heat up water. You're not allowed to heat up water on Shabbat. So are you allowed to bathe on Shabbat with water that was already heated from beforehand? The technical answer is yes. But we had a problem because what people were doing is people were going to bathhouses on Shabbat, and the worker there said, "Yeah, of course, I heated this up yesterday." And then the guy goes and he lights a match right there. Why? Because he doesn't want to lose his customer. And Chachamim saw that even though technically you're allowed to bathe with water that was heated before Shabbat, you're allowed to bathe with that on Shabbat. But then what was happening is people didn't have showers in their homes; they were going to bathhouses. And all the bathhouses, it was very clear, they were striking the match, starting the fire, warming up the water on Shabbat. So Chachamim made a takana gzera. And the gzera was that you're not allowed to bathe on Shabbat with hot water, even if it were heated before Shabbat. You're not allowed to bathe on Shabbat with hot water, even if it was heated before Shabbat. This is the gzera Chachamim said. But then Chachamim said, but you are allowed to steam. There's nothing wrong with steaming. So people go to a sauna, steam room. It opens up your pores. It clears up your respiratory system. Someone who has a bad cough, getting a nice steam in your throat is very good for you. There could be reasons why people do it. People think it's good. What's the difference between what? No, there's no water. You're not going into water. Okay, but you're not going into. You're not bathing. You're not bathing.
Wait, does this hold till today?
Hold on, time out. I never said you're heating water.
You're saying the Gzera was
the Gezerah? Okay, so let's be clear. You're not allowed to warm up water on Shabbat. Yes? Yes. Are you allowed to, from the Torah, are you allowed to go into water or bathe in water that has been heated up before Shabbat? The answer is yes. Chachamim made a Gezerah that you cannot bathe in water that has been heated even before Shabbat. You cannot bathe in. Because people were heating up Shabbat. Okay, so very good. So what happened is they drew the line there. But they said, but if you want to go to a steam room that was heated from before Shabbat, you're allowed to. And then it came to the next level, and they said, okay, people to have steam rooms also were heating things on Shabbat. So then they made another gezerah subsequently to prohibit steam rooms also. You're right. So they did it in stages. They first said bathing, but will allow this, and then they saw, no, this is also being abused. So it just historically, this is how it happened. So now what we're saying is, Rabbi went once, prayed Arvit of Shabbat, walked into the bathhouse, went into the sauna steam room, but this was before the gezerah that prohibited it, which means there was nothing technically wrong with it. Okay? There was nothing wrong with what he did, because it was before the gezerah. However, had it been after the gezerah, it wouldn't have been allowed. Or had he been bathing, it wouldn't have been allowed, because that bathing gezerah was already intact at the time of Rabbi. So the reason this matters is because we saw Rabbi do something. And we want to know, why did Rabbi go into the bathhouse after he prayed Arvit on Erev Shabbat? He prayed Arvit, then he went into the bathhouse. The answer is, he wasn't bathing because he wasn't allowed to, because of that gezerah, but he was steaming because it was before that gezerah. Okay? But you're right. Logically, it's the same thing, and then afterwards they made that gezerah. And that's exactly what the Gemara is telling us. Amar Rava, he went to sweat, the kodem gezerah hava, and it was before the sages issued this decree prohibiting perspiring in a bathhouse on Shabbat. Okay? Can you imagine how many halachot are here? I know people are going to want to ask, is there something wrong with sweating on Shabbat? So there's nothing wrong technically with sweating on Shabbat, but there's something wrong going into a steam room on Shabbat. You cannot go in a steam room on Shabbat, and you're seeing the gezerah here. You cannot bathe in water that has been heated on Shabbat. And on Shabbat or even on Erev Shabbat. Okay, so you just pull two things. Cold water, hotel. Shabbat, you're not allowed to bathe in hot water. Here's the gezerah. Even if it's a hotel. You're not allowed to bathe in hot water. Cold water would be allowed, because there's no gezerah on cold water. But cold means cold. Cold means like, ice plunge, come in, come out. 3 seconds later, then you have your whole towel situation is another situation to consider. Showering, washing hands is okay. For Yom Tov, there's a maximum temperature. For Shabbat, I don't have an answer for you. It's a good question. This is it's a very good question. It's a very good question, especially summertime. We're going into the winter time. Yeah, no. Because we're not talking about a minhag here. We're talking about gezerot. And the gezerot, even if you're Easternese. Shabbat, showering is a problem if it's hot. If it's hot, it's a problem.
There's no loophole there.
There's no loophole there. No.
I'm asking.
No. There's no loophole there. Sorry.
It's not how the labor and then hotels.
So what they say about the hotels is that the water is not getting heated up for me, but and since it's not getting heated up for me, it's getting heated up for a goy. So I'm just using some. Like the issue is if it's being warmed up for you, but if it's not being warmed up for you, it should be allowed. But I think that's what they rely on for washing your hands or your face or your feet. But for your entire body, there's a gezerah against it. No. Food is something else. You're allowed to drink hot water. Don't mix bathing with food. Food things are allowed, but there's own halachot. You cannot take one from the other. Here, again, I'm not talking about heating something up. We're not even talking about heating something up. We're talking about something that has been heated before Shabbat. You may not bathe in on Shabbat because of the gezerah that people were heating on Shabbat in order to do that. So just Chachamim said, no hot water on Shabbat. You cannot go in. I'm not talking about eating or drinking. Yes.
Would showering nowadays be a problem? It's like anything, even like slightly above the coldest setting is to an extent being heated.
Yes. My understanding, and this is what Ben was asking, is there a temperature? I think showering on Shabbat, unless it's like all the way to the cold side, is a problem. It's okay. You buy some deodorant, some cologne, and you buy it for Shabbat, and Hashem pays for it.
Is that for Chag or one week?
Yes, Chag is different. For Yom Tov, there are leniencies because Yom Tov, you are allowed to warm things up. You are allowed to use a fire on Shabbat. So there's a whole thing there that if the water is less than Yatzoledet body temperature, then you're allowed to bathe in it. You also can't bathe your full body in hot water, but on Shabbat, you can bathe in room temperature. But there's other considerations, like you cannot wring out the towel, but it's okay. Or you really shouldn't pull out any hair if you have any left. Or you shouldn't wring out your hair, which also is not really such a, people aren't really doing that. But drying out your hair, you shouldn't do. It's like other issues. But we're going into Chagim, right? So when it comes to the Chagim, there is, you know what, there's an article that I believe Rabbi Dr. Avram Ben Chaim wrote on bathing on Yom Tov. I have to find that article. Someone please remind me. I'll ask him. He probably has a PDF of it, and we'll send it to the chat. Where on Yom Tov there are leniencies because Yom Tov technically you are allowed to warm things up. You are allowed to use fire. So because of that, for your hands, face, and feet, you could use boiling hot water if you want. For your whole body, you can only use body temperature. So on Yom Tov you can, again, considering other things. This is a big topic, and we're not even learning that subject.
Also, no bar soap.
No soap, no bar of soap. There's some discussion about that. You should use liquid soap. That's right. I want to see if I could find Avram's article because if I recall, he went through all of these things. It's very relevant. It's very relevant. But yeah, what did you say? You said something. Yeah, it's going to depend on how your heater is. If you could set up your heater so that nothing comes in, there's another thing of there. Like, but we're really straying off very important, relevant topics. But I'm not prepared to give you the psak of these halachot. It's not a halacha shiur. But okay, very good, very good. We're almost there with this flow, and then I want to look at Shulchan Aruch. Okay, so what did we say? We said once you pray, you cannot do any melacha anymore. Okay, you cannot do any melacha anymore. We said, but hold on a second. Rabbi went to a sauna after he prayed Arvit, and then he gave us a shiur. Okay, Rabbi did it at a time where he didn't bathe, he didn't shower, he just went into sweat, and there was a time when that was allowed. Subsequently, they made the gezerah that is not allowed. So that's why he didn't do any melacha. So the Gemara says, okay, but I know someone else who did melacha. What is it? Ini. I have another. Is that so? I have another case. Abaye sharari l'Rav Dimi bar Livai l'kavrore saleh. One time, Abaye was in this situation where they prayed Arvit of Friday night. They prayed it early, and then Rav Dimi came to Abaye and says, "Can I fumigate my basket with sulfur?" And he said, "Yes, you can fumigate your basket with sulfur." I don't know what that means, but the point is, it's something that's asur to do on Shabbat. The guy's like singeing his basket to like finish it up with something. You're not allowed to do that on Shabbat. But Rav Dimi, they all prayed early. They all came, and then right afterwards, as on his way out, he asked Abai, "Can I go fumigate my basket right now?" And he says, "Yes, you can." So the Gemara says, well, how is he allowed to do that? The Gemara says, "Oh, hahuta utahavai." That was a situation where they prayed and they accepted Shabbat in error. So since they accepted Shabbat in error, it wasn't a real acceptance. What does that mean? But even if they accepted in error, shouldn't that be a real acceptance? If someone accepts Shabbat in error, whatever that means, they had the wrong time. They accepted Shabbat in error. You're going to tell me that it's not a real acceptance? But I have another story where it was. Mihadra v'ha amar Avidan. Avidan told us, once it was a very cloudy day, and it became very dark in the afternoon on a Friday. And they thought it was nightfall. They thought it became night already. So they went to the Bet Knesset, and they prayed Saturday night tefillah. They prayed early. They prayed the Saturday night tefillah on Shabbat afternoon. All of a sudden they come out, ready to go do Havdalah and have their pizza. clouds went away, sun shines out. We prayed Arvit of Saturday night, the sun is out. Ubau v'sha'alu et Rabbi, so they came and they asked Rabbi, do we have to pray Arvit again? We already prayed Arvit. Do we pray Arvit again? Ve'amar, he responded, Ho'il v'itpalalu itpalalu. If you prayed, you prayed. You don't have to pray again. Your Arvit, you don't have to do again. So the Gemara is saying, but it sounds like it was accepted. It sounds like whatever you did at night worked. The Gemara is going to answer no. Shani tzibur delo matrachinan lehu. When you have a tzibur, a congregation, and they already prayed, we're not going to require them to pray again, but it's still Shabbat. And vice versa, if someone makes a mistake and prays, if someone makes a mistake, it's not accepted. Whatever they do, if it was done mistakenly, it's not accepted. Which means, if someone ended Shabbat mistakenly, it's not accepted. It's still Shabbat. Same way on Friday, if someone accepted Shabbat mistakenly, he accepted it early, and then afterwards they realized we made a mistake, so it's not accepted. So 2:00 in the afternoon, the guy prayed Arvit. Yeah. So this is what the situation. They accepted it, but they accepted it as a mistake. They thought it was cloudy. They didn't have exactly. They prayed very early, before Plag Mincha. Let's say he prayed before Plag Mincha, for example. So then he came and he said, "Go fumigate your baskets. It's fine because you didn't. Your acceptance wasn't real. If you made a mistake, it wasn't a real acceptance. But single person has to pray again. A minyan does not need to pray again. Yes, question.
What if you accepted early, but it's still after clock? Like you thought you were going to late minyan, you actually went to the earliest possible.
Yeah. Okay. I was trying to. Yeah. Okay. Very, very good. So if someone made a mistake, what we're learning is that the acceptance is not valid. Okay. So now, if someone made a mistake, if someone's watch was wrong and he never actually accepted it and he prayed, you're asking a very good question. So I need to confirm.
Is it just the psychology of I made a mistake, or is it time? Yeah.
Okay.
Shabbat for, you can't accept
Well,
Arvit before you.
Okay, so we're saying two separate things. Number one is, can you accept Shabbat before Plag? And number two is, if you accepted Shabbat even after Plag, but you did it mistakenly, you did it under a false pretense. The false pretense is, I want to accept Shabbat when it's sunset. All of a sudden it comes cloudy, and I pray, and then I realize, oh, no, I still need to work for 2 hours. And I never meant to accept, I didn't mean to accept it this early, I just didn't know. That's a false pretense. What? Yeah. Okay, so I owe you guys a lot of answers. So what do I need? What? Or let's say your watch is wrong. Same concept. Let's say I'm a hired worker and I'm supposed to work until a certain time. And then all of a sudden this happens and it's like 3 hours of pay. I need that money. I didn't mean to accept Shabbat this early. It was an accident. I just got the wrong time. My acceptance is not a real acceptance. So that's what we're learning here is that, okay, then it doesn't work. This is a ta'ut. And that's why Abai permitted this person to go fumigate his baskets, whatever that is. But, okay, so someone write this down, please. I need to answer this question. So this is Adam Elon's question. Your question is about showering on Yom Tov, or just a general showering on Shabbat. Is there any temperature, or that's like really your question, about is there any temperature? And then there's the question of showering on Yom Tov, which is going to be very relevant because we have 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, 2 days of Sukkot, 2 days of Shmini Atzeret. So hopefully for that. So someone write these down and remind me, and I can hopefully look into it. Yeah. If you missed it by mistake, you have to, There, the ta'ut was a ta'ut of omission, where you. We didn't speak about that. We spoke about if you missed mincha. you pray Arvit twice. Or if you missed Arvit, you pray Shacharit twice. Your mistake was that you missed it. You missed it by accident.
Saying, oh, Shabbat.
Did we talk about that? Yeah, I don't remember. I don't remember if we spoke about that. You're saying if we prayed the wrong one. Maybe. Okay. Where are we up to? Wow. I didn't even get to the Erev Shabbat ones. Yeah. There's three more lines, 4 more lines of Gemara. I gotta do these 4 more lines of Gemara before we see Shulchan Aruch, okay? Let's go. 4 more lines. Amar Rabbi Chiya bar Ravin. Everyone have it? Amar Rabbi Chiya bar Ravin. If you're looking in the art scroll, it is on 27B2. I want to get to Tefillat HaErev in Makeva, okay? We have a couple more lines of Gemara to go. Let's do this, and then afterwards we're going to look up Shulchan Aruch. Amar Rabbi Chiya bar Ravin. Rav Saleh Shel Shabbat be'erev Shabbat. Rav prayed Friday night's prayer on Friday afternoon. He prayed of Shabbat on Erev Shabbat. That was the story we spoke about when he went to Geniva and Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba was behind him. That was the story of Rav. Rabbi Yoshia mitzaleh shel motzei Shabbat b'Shabbat. Rabbi Yoshia prayed Saturday night's tefillah on Shabbat. Rav tzaleh shel Shabbat b'erev Shabbat. Now, in the first case that we said that Rav prayed Arvit of Friday night, he prayed it early. He prayed it before candlelighting. Omer kiddusha lakos, or eno omer kiddusha lakos. The Gemara asks, can you go home and say kiddush? You're telling me that you're allowed to pray Friday night Arvit early while it's still day, but are you allowed to go say kiddush while it's still day? Tashema, the Gemara answers, Damar Rav Nachman bar Shmuel. Rav Nachman bar Shmuel tells us, Mitpalel Adam shel Shabbat be'erev Shabbat. A person may pray Friday night tefillah on Friday. Ve'omer kiddusha lakos. And he may also say kiddush Friday night, Friday day, before the nightfall. Meaning he's allowed to accept Shabbat early and even say kiddush and start his meal. V'hilcheta kavateh, and the halacha is like this, and thus is the practice of all of our batei kenesiot for the entire summer, where candlelighting is at 8:30, but we have a 6:30 minyan. And we don't say, oh, but you have to wait until 8:30 until you say kiddush. You go home and say kiddush. Why? Here's the source where you're allowed to say kiddush. What you're doing effectively is accepting Shabbat early, and when you accept Shabbat early, the daytime has become Shabbat. Again, provided that it's your after plug already. Daytime has become Shabbat. Yeah. But we know that there's a machloket between two opinions of when the end of mincha is. Obviously, you can't do it in the wrong time. There's only two opinions in our Mishnah. This is following the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda by praying it while it's still daytime. And even though you're praying while it's still daytime, you're allowed to, once you do that, you're allowed to go ahead and say kiddush. The Gemara says halacha is like him. Guys, let's hold off on the questions. Hopefully there's time afterwards, because I want to get to a good stopping point. Rabbi Yoshia mitzaleh shel motzei Shabbat b'Shabbat. Now, what was the second case? Rabbi Yoshia prayed Saturday night's tefillah while it was still Shabbat. He prayed Arvit, and he even said Atachon Antanu, because that's the Saturday night tefillah. Saturday night tefillah includes Atachon Antanu. And he did it early. The Gemara says, when he did that, Omer Havdalah lakos, or no Omer Havdalah lakos. Is he allowed to do Havdalah also while it's still daylight on Shabbat? Is he allowed to do Havdalah? Tashema, the Gemara says, let's bring a proof. Damar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Rav Yehuda quotes Shmuel, the same opinion as before, and says, Mitpalel Adam shel motzei Shabbat b'Shabbat. A person may pray the Saturday night prayer on Shabbat, ve'omer Havdalah alakos, and he can already say Havdalah while it's still Shabbat. Unbelievable. He may not light the candle. You cannot do melacha, but he is allowed to pour the cup of wine, say Anna, and then do all of the tefillah, Rishon LeZion, Baruch Ata Hashem, Sari Maranam Priya Gefen, Baruch Ata Hashem, Mavdil ben Kodesh Echol, Levenu Lechoshech, Baruch Ata Hashem, Mavdil ben Kodesh Echol, drink it, and it's still daylight. He's allowed to. He's not allowed, I don't think Besamim. But he's not allowed to, I don't think we do Besamim in that situation. He's not allowed to do any melacha, but he's allowed to do Havdalah. Why would someone ever do this? I want to give you an example. Oh, very good. One more time. Sorry, let me just get through this flow. Let me get through this flow. I know I just want to do this. Amar Rabbi Zera, Amar Rabbi Aseh, Amar Rabbi Lazar, Amar Rabbi Chanina, Amar Rav. Okay, it's a rabbi chain. Bitzad Amudza, he's going to tell us a story. Guys, the story is amazing. You ready? He says, Bitzad Amudza, you see this pillar over here? He points to that pillar right over there on the wall in the Kanisa. Bitzad Amudza, right next to this pillar. Hitpalel Rabbi Yishmael Rabbi Yosef Shal Shabbat Be'erev Shabbat. I saw Rabbi Yishmael, the son of Rabbi Yosef, next to that pillar, he prayed Shel Shabbat Be'erev Shabbat. He prayed Friday night, he prayed early. He prayed on Friday afternoon, he accepted Shabbat early. Ki ata ula, now, this is quoting Rabbi Zera, in the name of Rabbi Yaseh, in the name of Rabbi Elazar, in the name of Rabbi Chanina, in the name of Rav. Ula came and said, you had some nice telephone game here, because you got some of the details wrong. He says, it wasn't this pillar. Bitzad Timarahava, it was by a tree. It was by a date tree. Velo Bitzad Amuhava, it wasn't by this pillar. Velo Rabbi Yishmael Rabbi Yosef, it wasn't Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Yosef, it was Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Yosef. You got your rabbi wrong. His father's name was Rabbi Yosef, but you got the rabbi wrong. Velo Shel Shabbat Erev Shabbat, and it wasn't Friday night's prayer on Friday afternoon. Ela Shel Motzei Shabbat Shabbat. It was Saturday night's prayer on Saturday afternoon. Other than that, you got your details right. But you got the wrong place, wrong rabbi, wrong day. And when I read this, I'm like, maybe it's two different stories. I don't know. It's possible because nothing here aligns other than the fact that a rabbi prayed early. Okay, now I have a lot of things to discuss in a couple minutes. Why would someone pray Arvit early on Motzei Shabbat? So one example that I heard called out here is, let's say you have to go to the airport and every minute counts. And every minute counts, and you're saying, look, I need to rush out at this time. If I rush out at this time, I'm not going to pray Arvit. I'm not going to do Havdalah. So you know what you can do? There's a situation in which you can pray Arvit. You could do Havdalah while it's still daytime. Then you do Esh later. I want to tell you where I first was exposed to this. I was first exposed to this during the times of COVID. Okay? During the times of COVID, the first couple of weeks, our kanisas were shut down. Then after a short amount of time, they started having outdoor minyanim. And when we did outdoor minyanim, we were doing mincha arvit, chik chak, ready, go home. We did Friday night, mincha arvit, chik chak, go home. When is the time that you can't do chik chak, go home? Is on Shabbat afternoon. Because you pray mincha, then you have to wait like an hour until it's time for arvit. So Rabbi Ben Chaim had minyan in his backyard. It's the first time I was exposed to this. I went to his house for mincha. Right after mincha, we did Arvit. Like, what on earth is going on here? We prayed Arvit while it was. It really wasn't. It wasn't daytime. It was already past sunset. And then he said we could already do Havdalah. And I can't remember if we actually did Havdalah, but I remember him saying you could already do Havdalah. And people were saying, well, how are you going to do Havdalah? And you know what he said? He didn't need to look it up. He said the following line. Tagid. What is the line? Oh, we just said it right now. Who is the rabbi?
Ula.
Rabbi Yoshia. Rabbi Yoshia Matzleh Shel Motzei Shabbat v'Shabbat. Rabbi Yoshia did this. There was another rabbi that also we said did this. That's the halacha. What was the story though? There was a story. Yeah. Okay, so this is the story with Rabbi Yoshia. But this is what he always quotes this Gemara, that you're allowed to pray early. You're allowed to do Havdalah early. I'm going to tell you another time I was exposed to this. Here's the situation. Onen. We learned the laws of Onen at the beginning of Pirek Mishemetod, third chapter. Remember what we learned about Onen is not allowed to do mitzvot. Remember, why can't an Onen do mitzvot? He has to be preoccupied with the burial. So an Onen, what is an Onen? Someone's relative passed away before the burial. He's not considered an Avel, a mourner. He's called an Onen. Onen doesn't do any mitzvot because he has to be focused on the burial. So here's the situation. You ready? Someone's relative passed away on Friday. The burial is going to be Sunday morning. He's not supposed to pray. He doesn't do any mitzvot. Except on Shabbat he does. So I was sitting with Rabbi Chai maybe earlier this year in a situation like this, and he said, you're not allowed to do Havdalah on Saturday night because you don't have a mitzvah, because you're an onen and you're patur and you don't do that. You also don't pray Arvit on Saturday night. But if you pray Arvit early and you do Havdalah early while it's still daylight and it's still Shabbat, you're obligated to. And so this was the guidance he gave, and I was there and there's witnesses. He told them, you're an onen, not you. In this situation, he told the onanim, he told them, pray mincha arvit early on Shabbat while it's still Shabbat. Before sunset, do Havdalah. Because once it becomes sunset, your laws of onen kick in and you're not allowed to pray arvit. And you're not allowed to do Havdalah. It's amazing. And this is then after he said this, we looked it up. We saw it in the Yalkut Yosef also. Rabbi Yosef writes to do this also. So there's many commentators that talk about this also. So here's situations where you would want to pray early. You would want to do Havdalah early, and people feel that this doesn't feel right because the second I say Havdalah, Shabbat is over. No, what you're saying in Havdalah is that Hashem, you made a difference between Kodesh and Chol, but I'm not saying that the Chol began yet. The Chol is going to begin when the Chol begins. What I'm saying now is, Hashem, you distinguish between days of the week. I'm not saying the day of the week began already. I'm saying you distinguish between them. That's what I say in Atach Vanatana. And when I say Havdalah, I say I'm Avdil ben Kodesh Shechol. You separate between this day and you separate between that day. And I acknowledge that. And in 2 hours, I'm going to live that. But not yet. So this is a very unknown trivia halacha. You are allowed to do Havdalah on Shabbat without the candle, without Besamim. And then afterwards, you have to do Borei Me'orei Ha'esh. Okay, good. Do we have time to look up Shulchan Aruch for the 3 steps back? Okay, let's go. Shulchan Aruch, everyone look at the screen. I'm going to do 4 halachot here. Okay, Siman Kuf Bet. You know what? Let's go to Sif Bet. Sif Dalet. Asur la'avor keneged hamitpalelim. You are not allowed to pass in front of one who is praying. Betoch arba amot. Within 4 amot. V'dafka lifnehem. And this applies only in front of them. So actually, I mistranslated the first line. The first line is, you are not allowed to pass 4 amot within them. And then he qualifies, v'dafka lifnehem. That's only if you are in front of him. But on their sides, you are allowed to la'avor v'la'amot. You're allowed to pass by, you're allowed to stand. You shouldn't stand right in front of him, because that's going to be disruptive of him. But you are allowed to pass and stand by his side. Now, im hishlim tefilato, this is your question. Let's say I'm praying and I finish my prayer. And someone is praying behind me. Asur livsoa shalosh pesiyot. You may not take your 3 steps back. Until the guy behind me finishes his tefillah. You're not allowed to take 3 steps back because that's the same thing as passing by in front of him. I'm passing by into him. You're not allowed to. Because if you take 3 steps back, it's like you're passing by in front of him. It's the same concept. And you need to be careful with this, even if you are very upset with this guy. Even if the guy behind you started his prayer after I started. Even though I could say this bozo came late, and now because he came late and he's deciding to start as I'm doing Lokai Nesor, and I really want to take 4 steps back, and I want to knock into him, Shulchan Aruch says you cannot. You have to respect the Amidah, even if this guy started late. So what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to stand there. You're supposed to stand there and wait. How long? Until he finishes his prayer. What about if I'm going to lose Kedusha? The answer is you're allowed to respond to Kedusha. Once you say the second, and you're ready to take your 3 steps back, you're allowed to answer anything. You're allowed to answer Kedusha. You're allowed to answer Amen. You're allowed to answer Barachu. You're allowed to answer any Berachot. A Kaddish. You can answer anything. You're allowed to read a book. You're allowed to say Tehillim. You're allowed to say Shir LaMalot, Shir HaMalot. But you should not take 3 steps back. No, you wait 3 steps. You wait. Your Oseh Shalom happens after you take your 3 steps back. You wait there. You had a question on this? Yeah.
Like you still had a comment trying to pass by He's seeing that the Kohen's waiting, and
Yeah.
they're disturbed, the same thing happens always when something's in front of me. I look back.
So, okay.
I see them like that. Gone.
Very good, very good. So now Gabriel is making a good point, because if I'm praying and the guy in front of me looks back and looks back and looks back and looks back, it's like it's annoying. So what I try to do is I try not to look back. Once I look back once, I see the guy is going, I just don't look back. I just accept that Ribono Shel Olam wants me to be here at this point. Now I'll tell you what I do reverse. Sometimes there's someone in front of me that I noticed is waiting. You know what I do afterwards? I say, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo. I want to make sure that he knows that I'm done with my tefillah. Because I'm a little bit later than him. I make sure that he knows. Or I try to make some sort of a yoga pose where I show him, look, my legs are not together anymore. I split my legs. I start doing some ballet moves. I start stretching my hamstrings. So the guy's clear that, like, okay, you could come back now. I want to do it in a way so as not, so that this way he doesn't have to keep looking back. But it's true. You shouldn't keep looking back, looking, because that's also disruptive. So you should be respectful for the person who's praying, and don't take steps back into him, and don't pressure the guy to finish. Let the guy pray. Hashem should answer his tefillot. It's good for you also if Hashem answers his tefillot. Yes, question?
Just in space, stairs,
What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Yeah, there are times where it's like, oh, you know what sometimes people do? I don't know if this is allowed. I think it's allowed because I see people do it. People somehow start like they twist their ankles sideways. You ever seen this? People start taking 3 steps like at a northeast angle. Like not 3 steps back, but somehow they like pivot. They're like good ball players. They pivot and they take their 3 steps back sideways. This is what people do. People do this. People will say, I'm not taking 3 steps back into him. I'm taking 3 steps to the side. There's sometimes someone has to go. Like I said, a Kohen, or someone needs to go to the bathroom, or something's happening. Or a Chazan. This has happened to me when I've been Chazan. You go to a wedding. After a wedding, everyone's praying in the side room. And now I'm standing there and someone came up right behind me. And it's like, B'chava. I'm like, I can't B'chava. This guy came right now. I'm like, B'chava. So it's like, look, everyone is waiting. I'm not going to make everyone wait because this person. So you try to do it on the side. Okay, you have to use your judgment. The halakha is telling you should not take 3 steps back into the person, but there are times where you might be better off doing it. If you're going to be annoyed at the guy looking, just take your 3 steps back and leave him alone, because that would actually end up helping the guy. I think these are times where you have to use your judgment. I'm not telling you to be an annoyed person so that this way you have an excuse. Don't take your 3 steps back into him, but you need to use your judgment as well. Okay? All right. So I owe you guys a bunch of questions. Someone has to take notes. Few very critical things we learned tonight. Number 1, critical thing is you're allowed to pray Arvit Friday night. You're allowed to pray on Friday afternoon. You're allowed to pray Arvit early, and you're allowed to say Kiddush early. Okay? So that's number 1. You're allowed to do early Mincha, early Arvit on Friday afternoons, and even say Kaddish. Similarly, you're allowed to pray Arvit on Shabbat, and even say Atah Chorantanu, and even do Havdalah with the cup. You're allowed to. We don't do this, but there are times when it matters. There's times where it's relevant to do it. There are times where, like I said, during the times of COVID, I saw we were praying Arvit early, or in Onen, they'll pray Arvit early, and they'll do Havdalah early. There are times where it's allowed. These are 2 very important rules that we learned tonight. We also learned a lot of Gemarot about having a respect for the rabbi, not to pray right next to the rabbi, not to pray right behind the rabbi, not to call him by saying, hey, what's up, not to give him shalom, not to respond shalom in a disrespectful way, not to compete with him, and not to, I forgot the last one, whatever it is. Don't disrespect your rabbi. Why? Because these are all things that would cause the Shekhinah to leave. Don't misquote him. Very good. Don't misquote him. Very good, Shlomo. You got a great memory. Very good. Don't misquote him. And then after that, we also learned about taking the 3 steps back, or not passing by in front of someone who's praying, not taking 3 steps back into someone who's praying. And we spoke about some exceptions there. We spoke about bathing on Shabbat and bathing in bathhouses on Shabbat with hot water, cold water, Yom Tov, how there's some differences. A lot of halachot there. We also spoke about acceptances, erroneous acceptances, accepting Shabbat when you actually didn't mean it, or ending Shabbat when you actually didn't mean it. And what we learned is that an erroneous acceptance doesn't work. And you guys are asking some good follow-up questions about, like, what if it's falling in the right time And I think the understanding is if it's erroneous, if it was mistaken, if you didn't mean it, then it doesn't work. But we did learn that even if it's erroneous and mistaken, for a tzibur, they don't require you to pray Arvit again because it's hard to get everyone to go pray Arvit again. So it's okay, Rabula, you already prayed. But for an individual, you would have to pray Arvit again in that situation. We learned a lot of topics tonight. Anything else we learned? We learned that Rav's student is Rabbi Yirmiyahu Rabbah. Yeah, very good, very good. That's another one that a person should say mi badil mar. He said mi badalt, mi badalta. Did you stop doing work instead of asking mi badal mar? That a person should speak to the rabbi with respect by saying the rabbi, the Rav. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he. Okay, it's a good question. You know what? Elon's asking, why did he ask him? Maybe he thought he was praying mincha. Maybe he wasn't sure if he prayed mincha while he's praying Arvit. I don't know. It's a good question. Good question. I need to look into that. If you write it, I'll look up the Masifta to see if there's any answers there. Okay, Azak Baruch everyone. Be'ezrat Hashem next week. Yes, you have a question? So if there's like a wall between them or there's something that's separating them, then I've seen that that's allowed. So if someone has a chair set up in front of them, then it might be allowed. But again, that also helps with being out of 4 amot. That ends up helping with no one coming in within your 4 amot. But I've seen that also. That if there's some sort of a wall or a divider, then there's a separation, then it's allowed. It might be the best to just pray in front of a wall. If you pray in front of a wall.
What if you better to sit back or just
So if you sit in the back, then you're not gonna you could pray at your own pace and you don't have to worry about going into someone else. You could finish whenever you want, but the other people might be coming in front of you. Yeah. Exactly. The whole chain is waiting for you to finish. Okay, Azak Baruch.